This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Well, hello, friends, and thanks to all of you who are joining me. I know I'm starting it a little bit early, but I wanted to say hello, and my name is Dan Zehr. Welcome to CWK Live Coffee with Kenobi's live YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter show. We do them on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, I'm your host, Dan Zehr, delighted to talk Star Wars with each and every one of you. Now, it's a little bit earlier than usual because tonight is, well, frankly, it's the I can do it, Major League Baseball All-Star Game. That is a tradition in our household, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the show now. Hello, Nick. It is great to see you, my friend. I had a bit of a connecting issue, so I'm not sure if we got to all the normal places, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm looking forward to chatting with you all tonight. We have got your top 5 moments from Choice, got some Star Wars news and merchandise updates, and I've got a Coffee with Kenobi announcement about the future of the live show as well. So, Nick and friends, if you could, go ahead and tag a friend and let them know that we are doing the live show. And I'm going to jump into what is brewing in the world of Star Wars this week. All right, so the great news, I think this is pretty great. So if you're a collector, then you know that the Hasbro HasLabs are amazing, right? They are amazing, and the Star Wars ones are so popular. Star Wars and G.I. Joe, of course G.I. Joe too. Love G.I. Joe. They are huge. Brian is here. Hello, Brian. This is the Tuesday. Brian and Nick are here, so it's so great to see you both. The Mos Eisley Cantina, it met its goal. 14,737 backers. They only need 8,000. It's going to start shipping in the fall of 2025. So you got to wait a little while, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be really a really cool thing. I was excited to see that. I got to talk to the Hasbro team quite a bit about this thing, and it's fully funded. So what a great, exciting thing. We also have, if you remember, I work with Heroes and Villains. They have amazing merchandise, not just in the world of Star Wars, but all kinds of pop culture. I was really eyeing a Superman hat the other day, inspired by my conversations with Tom and Corey on CWK Pour-Over, where we talked about this Superman for All Seasons miniseries from several years ago. But now I thought this was perfect for the Acolyte. They have Star Wars tees. Of course, why am I saying it like it's news? Oh, Star Wars t-shirts. Wow, that's been going on for almost 50 years. These are the Acolyte tees. So there's one of your beloved characters from the Acolyte. And then here's a cool one of the Stranger. And this is only a sample of all the ones that they have on there. Some really cool things that I think you'll enjoy. And both with this, with any of the t-shirts or anything that you see on Heroes and Villains, just put in the code COFFEE, just the word coffee, and you get 20% off your order thanks to Heroes and Villains and Coffee with Kenobi. So be sure to do that. It helps support this show, but more importantly, get you a good little discount on some amazing merchandise. Now, news-wise, most of the news is centered around, of course, the Acolyte finale later tonight, and then on D23, the fan expo that is happening, I think it's August 9th, 10th, and 11th. And several of you who are watching the show are actually going to D23, which is pretty cool. And there's going to be a lot of cool Star Wars stuff there. A lot of course, merchandise stuff. Think of D23 as Star Wars Celebration, but with everything Disney. Some of the best cosplay you'll ever see. It's at the Anaheim Convention Center. Tickets are already sold out. So if you are not able to go, then hopefully there'll be a lot of coverage, wink, wink, to highlight everything for you. StarWars.com is, of course, the place to go for Star Wars, besides Jedi News and Coffee with Kenobi. And they have a wonderful article on the differences between Cortosis and Beskar and what they mean in-world and their strength, their durability, how they are used in world in Star Wars. I think it's a lot of fun, very informative, so be sure to check that out. Okay. And then news-wise, I'm switching it just live. So I'm going to tell you about the future of CWK Live. I started CWK Live during quarantine, during COVID. The first date of the live show, I believe, was in April of 2020. I used my phone. I set it up in my office when my office was decorated and set up quite a bit differently. I didn't have any special lighting. I didn't have any special sound. I just talked Star Wars, and it was fun. Fun is an understatement. It was an absolute blast. The show has grown beyond my wildest expectations, and it's grown so much that I was able to use the CWK Live audio from the live show as a separate podcast. So there was 2 Coffee with Kenobis each week. And, it's been several years since then. 4 years later, well over 100 live shows. And here we are. So the bad news, well, is it bad? I don't know if it's bad. It's the end of an era. I'm looking at it as the end of an era. I'm actually, next week will be the last CWK Live. Just saying it out loud actually does make me kind of sad because I love it. I love the video aspect of Coffee with Kenobi. I've gotten to know so many of you because of CWK Live. I've gotten to talk about news and merchandise in different ways. I broadcasted live from Star Wars Celebration. I broadcast live from Galaxy's Edge, both at Walt Disney World and at Disneyland. I broadcast live from Wrigley Field. There was a CWK Live, and I had tickets to the Cubs Star Wars night, so we broadcast live from Wrigley Field. I had Ross Halbin and LJ Sauter with me. And I also broadcast live. There's one more. From the Galactic Star Cruise, the Halcyon. Epic stuff. So many memories. But the show is going to stop after next week. Not Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi has been broadcasting for 11 years. That is not going to change. You're still stuck with me in the world of Star Wars and fandom. But CWK Live, after next Tuesday, will be shutting off the studio light. Now, this isn't forever. It may come back like for spontaneous ones, if there's something exciting to talk about, or maybe to talk about different shows and things like that. It might bring it back for that, because I do like doing these. I like breaking down the episodes. I like breaking down the Star Wars content with you. But honestly, it's a lot of there's a lot that goes into a live show, and I treasure it. But I'm at a place where it's between balancing this and family and grad school and other things that I'm working on. It's just become very, very difficult to juggle it all and still be the best version of myself I can be in all the areas of my life. So that is why we're going to put pause on CWK Live. I'm saying pause, so it is pausing. I can unpause it at any time, but not for the foreseeable future, and probably not on any kind of a regular basis. So for all intents and purposes, next week will be the last CWK Live. And honestly, my family is in such a place right now where I don't want to miss any of it. I mean, I never want to miss anything with my family, but I just want to be more present in all aspects, and not just here, not just grad school, not just as a teacher, but just everywhere. And even for Coffee with Kenobi, honestly, coming up with several topics a week can be challenging when you've been doing the show for over 11 years. And I always want to make sure I bring you fresh, high quality content. And that's always been the goal, so that you have a voice. And that's not going to change. The live show is going to be the thing that changes. So this is the second to last one of the live show. But it's okay. Coffee with Kenobi is not going anywhere. Just the live show after next week. So we'll cover the 7th episode of The Acolyte here in a few minutes. And next week will be the 8th episode of The Acolyte, and we will give your top 5 moments from that. And that will be the last live show for the foreseeable future. All right, but don't be sad. I know I'm going to miss talking to you, but I'm not going anywhere. You'll still see me in the CWK Cafe. I'll also be sharing things on Coffee with Kenobi's social media, and of course, the podcast. Again, Coffee with Kenobi is not going anywhere. I'm just going to stop the live show after next week. All right, Robert says, sorry for being late. I totally missed it. It was an hour earlier this week. I have a feeling I missed something. No, Robert, great to have you. Sorry, we started a little bit early. We got the All-Star game tonight, and that's a family tradition here, so I don't want to miss that. The main thing is that the live show after next week is I'm going to stop producing the live show. I love it. It's great, but I probably spend 5 to 6 hours every week on the live show, and that counting what you're actually seeing now. And with a staff of one, it gets hard to manage. Again, that's not a bad thing. It's just I want to put my eggs in a different basket. And there's other things I have planned, other fun things, Star Wars, Coffee with Kenobi related, Dan Z related that I'm working on. And so you're still stuck with me, just going to be in a different capacity than the live show. All right, that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the top 5. All right, tonight's live, CWK Live, are your top 5 moments from the Acolyte episode choice, the 7th episode. Let's go ahead and dive into this episode. Brian said, it's been a genuine pleasure to share Mondays and Tuesdays with you. Sad to see CWK Live go, but we appreciate how much time and energy it took to put it on. Well, Brian, thanks, brother. You know what? I count you and Robert and Nick and Mary and so many regulars here on this live show that have made such an impact on me and that I'm forever grateful for. And I'll talk a lot more about that next week for sure. Minta, certainly. Minta's been with us since the beginning too. And it's been great fun. It's been great fun. All right, let's go to number 5. Number 5 for me is context. So finally, we have context. This is a story that has gone out of order and how it's told the story. That has been happening since Star Wars came out in 1977, so that is not new. It's actually a classic trope, an archetype in mythology, in storytelling. And I love it. I love it. I love that the Acolyte does it. I like that it makes me think, and I think that it allows for some really cool surprises. But it has been somewhat hard to follow, and that is by design. A really cool concept. But now with the context and what happened with Master Soul and the twins and the Jedi Council and Indara and Kelnaka, all of the Jedi who were a part of this, it's been a big deal to try to figure it out. And now that we have that context, I find it really, really exciting. And it fills in some gaps. There's still more, which is great too. Number 5 for Robert, Kelnaka walking with a metal detector. If only he could have been on a beach. Yes. Where is it? Oh, I have the rim shot. I'm going to read it again. Kelnaka walking with a metal detector. If only he could have been on a beach. Thank you, Robert. I actually made that a joke on Coffee with Kenobi's podcast too. So I feel honored that I had similar thoughts that you did. And it's, I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, obviously they're trying to detect something. They're looking for virgins in the Force. And using that metal detector I got a kick out of that. Next 5. Right now I choose Mother. Jodie Turner-Smith was given an Emmy-nominated performance. She was great in that, wasn't she? She was very powerful. I think it's fair to say she's a character that people really, really like. Brian's 5. Brendock, 16 years earlier, finally getting some of the missing pieces. Yes, finally getting some context. Some understanding of not only it's important to see these Jedi working together and to see what happened that causes such a massive, massive rift. Because there is a massive rift, obviously. And just think we're just a few hours away from seeing what happens. Number 4, Wookiee fight. I thought it would be higher on my list, but there's some other things that kind of crept up. But when Kelnaka we finally get to see a Wookiee Jedi Knight fight with the Force, with a lightsaber, using Force telekinesis, and all the things that happen. Now, Kelnaka is not of his right mind. He's being taken over or possessed by the Night Sisters. What a cool sentence. A Wookiee taken over by Night Sisters and uses the Force to fight. How cool, right? And that's what happened. And it was spectacular. The choreography, the stunt work, the special effects, the music, the acting, the performances. It was great. Really, really cool to see. I was worried I wasn't going to get to see it, so I'm glad we did. Number 4 for Robert, seeing why one never wants to anger a Wookiee. Yes, absolutely. And we knew, because of the beloved Chewbacca, that it wasn't a good idea. But in seeing it as with a Jedi, as the Wookiee don't want to make upset, yikes. Nick, watching Indara lead the Jedi throughout the episode. Nick, I'm torn on Indara. She, there's so much potential there, but I find her hard to relate to because she keeps so many secrets. She's very strict on adhering to the Jedi Council. And yet, she is one of the chief people responsible for this lie that causes so much problems, so many problems and so much devastation. It's tricky, isn't it? Number 4 for Brian, a Wookiee using a metal detector in a field of grass. Hope he wasn't on detector duty for the whole 7 weeks. That would get quite tedious, wouldn't it? In a field of grass. Yeah, I still think that's kind of fun. That whole thing that happened there, I really got a big kick out of it. So, we'll see. We'll see what if that shows up in any other Star Wars related things. Pretty fun. All right, let's go to number 3. Usually a lot of people watch on X, but the X feed wasn't working, wasn't connecting to the live show. So I apologize for that. Those of you who usually watch on Twitter/X. Number 3 for me, Light of the Jedi. There's a reference to Light of the Jedi right away. This planet, Brundok, did not have life for a long time because of the hyperspace disaster, which was made famous in Light of the Jedi, the first book, the first adult novel in the High Republic. Incredible publishing initiative by Star Wars, Lucasfilm Publishing, written by Charles Soule. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend all of the High Republic books, but especially the adult novels. I've got interviews with all of the authors, actually, of the different authors on Coffee with Kenobi through the podcast feed itself. So a reference to Light of the Jedi was very, very cool. And it was nice to see because one of my challenges with the series is that it's set in the High Republic era, but I would like to see some evidence of that. And that was a good nod to that for sure. Okay. If anyone else has a number 4 that they would like to, or a number 3 that they would like to share, please feel free to do so. While you're thinking about that, let me remind you that we've got an amazing thing coming up next summer. The Disney Wish, the incredible cruise ship that I've never been on, but I'm looking forward to doing that. And hopefully I can experience it with all of you. Coffee with Kenobi and MEI and Mouse Fan Traveler are going on the Disney Wish. It has the Hyperspace Lounge you see pictured here. It's a family-friendly ship. It's got some adult-only sections. It's got a lot of cool things. And I'm looking forward to sharing information about that with you as we get closer and closer, because there's going to be some other added bonus things added to the cruise as well that you can only do if you are part of the Coffee with Kenobi and Mouse Fan Travel Group. If you're curious, I want to get your no cost, no obligation quote, go to coffeewithkenobi.com/Disney Wish. Number 3 for Robert, Indara rescuing Torben from Kilnock. That was a huge part of this whole thing. It was really pretty thrilling, I would say. Very, very thrilling, very intense. Brian's 3, Nuna Legs, a close relation to the Nuna Jerky at Ronto Roasters and Galaxy's Edge. Hey, you know what? Good call. You just know, Brian, you just know that they're going to serve that somewhere in Galaxy's Edge at some point, you would sure think. Next 3, seeing Anasea, Mother Anasea use magic and turn into black dust, and that did not end up working out so well. But it was a mystical, fascinating thing to see. The special effects are, of course, terrific. And that was a major dramatic moment in that. It was kind of a stunner, really. It was really quite a stunner. I really was really blown away by it. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, Torben. I was so excited and so pleased to get to know Torben a little bit more through the show, through this episode choice, because we saw him briefly a couple of times in a couple episodes. We saw his ending, but there weren't a lot of reasons to kind of hook into him as a character and to understand more about what makes him tick. And we got a little bit of that in this episode. He was a focal point. He got to fight. He got to share his frustration and his honest opinion that, hey, I want to be home. I want to be back on Coruscant. I want to be looking around through the grass, watching the Wookiee with the metal detector. That's my words, not his. And he wants a break. And he wants to do something that he feels like is worthwhile. Master Soul explains it to him, gives a little more credibility, which was neat. But ultimately, he had a different path for himself. So I was really appreciative to get to know him in a much different context and learn more about him. Number 2 for Brian, Jedi are looking for a virgins in the Force. I loved how Soul just calmly described what they were looking for in Torben. I wonder why it took them 7 weeks to find him. You know what? That's a good question. There's probably even more to learn about this sequence, this episode, this mystery, and hopefully we find that tonight. Mary's here. Hello, Mary. Late to the party tonight, guys. Mary, no problem. We started a little bit early, so I'm glad to see you here. Number 2 for Robert, the lesson of not using one moment in someone's life or one expression someone makes to judge a person or a group, which both sides were guilty of doing. You know, that's a great lesson just in general, isn't it? Just outside of the world of Star Wars. But yes, holding someone or labeling someone to being one certain way is not fair, but it's very human, isn't it? I mean, we've all done it. It's hard not to get out of our own way sometimes, and I really feel like psychologically it comes to life here. Next has the M-Count reference from Torben, which was nice, which was first talked about in Star Wars The Bad Batch's 3rd season, of course. All right, Mary, I know you probably have a list, so feel free to pop it in at any time. But for now, I'm going to go to my top moment from Star Wars The Acolyte's 7th episode choice. Sacrifice. This is, there's a discrepancy here. When May hears Mother Anastasia tell her about what the ascension means, she messes it up. Mother Anastasia says sacrificing a part of yourself, which, you know, is a part of growing up and moving on past other beliefs and finding other ways to live, to think about other people. But then May tells the Jedi they were told to they were going to be sacrificed to fulfill their destiny, which sounds a lot worse than it actually is. And the reason I like this is because it's so real. It's so honest. You know, people take things out of context. People misremember things. They misquote themselves. They misquote other people. And this time, it's detrimental to the survival of a lot of characters. So it's horrible. But it's also a real psychological thing. You know, again, Mother Anastasia says, you're going to sacrifice a part of yourself, which is a noble thing, which just means you're going to think about other people besides yourself. Basically, that's what it meant. And when Mother Anastasia said it. But May retells it, and she says that I heard it's sacrificed to fulfill their destiny, which is a lot different. And it sounds like they're going to be sacrificed in some horrible, tragic, awful thing that will end up with these children losing their lives. It's not the case, but it sounds like that. Wow. And I guess I could put as an honorable mention the fact that we find out that this Virgins in the Force, very different than Anakin, is one soul split into 2 bodies. And that's what happened. So that's wild. We've never seen anything like that in Star Wars. Pretty wild stuff. Number 1 for Brian, Kelnaka fighting Soul and Torben. Definitely love that. Of course, as I said earlier, I was tempted to put it number 1, but then I started thinking about some other things and it jumped up for me. Number 1 for Robert, the episode's name. Everyone's intentions were good, till each individual on both sides of the conflict made abysmal choices, which led to disaster. Yes, lying leads to bad things. I mean, it's in the 10 Commandments. It's been true since the beginning of time. Lying is never good, regardless of the reason why you're going to lie. And boy, oh boy, did we see that happen again and again and again in the episode choice. Makes for a very, very tragic thing, doesn't it? Very tragic thing. All right. Let's see. Just want to give anybody else a chance. Nick, if you have your number 1, there you go. There he is. Nick's quote from Nick says the quote from Mother Anastasia. but Jedi's noble intentions foreshadowing the Jedi future. That was pretty scary, wasn't it? What did she say? It's going to be, you're going to be the ruin of the galaxy or the ruin of the order. I don't remember the exact quote. Maybe someone here does. I know you listening have it because, of course, the live show you can catch live here on Facebook, YouTube, and X, but you can hear the audio of the podcast at any time. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for breaking down Choice with me. This week, I talked about it with James Burns, and we're going to break down the finale for you. Next week, the last CWK Live is your top 5 moments from the Acolytes, episode 8. So now, let's jump into Ask Dan Z. All right, so thank you everybody for joining me on CWK Live. I know again we have a smaller audience than we usually do, but that's because it started an hour earlier and some of the feeds didn't work, so I'm so sorry about that. But hopefully you get a chance to rewatch the replay if you would like to. Brian says, I almost put that down as well. Everyone seems to make a bad choice in this episode that escalates to disaster very quickly. You're right, Brian. You're absolutely right. Causes a lot of heartache that doesn't need to happen. Now, it's not that cut and dry. It's a much more challenging thing. A lot of crazy things happen. A lot of terrible things happen. And we'll certainly talk about that forever. Again, if you're not able to join me at the top of the show, next week is the last episode of CWK Live. I'm going to stop producing and arranging and recording CWK Live each week because it's such a massive time commitment and I need to put a break in it, to pause it for the foreseeable future so that I have time for other projects that I'm working on that I can't talk about because I'm in grad school, and most importantly, because I want to spend more time with my family. And that this, as much as I love CWK Live, it takes away from a lot of things. I want to be the best version of myself in all areas. And if I get too divided, then I'll be like a virgins in the forest. I can't be fully myself. And we can't have that. But Coffee with Kenobi is not going anywhere. I'm not stopping doing the podcast. You're going to have that. There'll be occasional pop-up live shows where we can talk about a big topic together, or maybe that we'll plan stuff. We'll see. But one day I've been thinking about it, talking about it with my family. I just think this is the best move. But you're not completely, you're still stuck with me. And I'm happy about that because I love this community so much. Brian, did I watch Summer on Derby last night? I wasn't 100% on the new format, but did make for an entertaining evening. I did watch it, and I loved it. Mason and I had the best time watching it. I will say, I actually liked the format. I thought it was cool because it wasn't like you had to beat just the other person. It made it more suspenseful. But it was a long show, and I'm sure tonight will too. Mary says, family comes first. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Actually, Mary, I almost gave you a heads up about this, but I figured I don't want to play favorites. And so there's that. But again, you're still stuck with me. Just going to put a pause on the live show. Put it in carbonate for a while. Maybe it'll be rescued later, but for the foreseeable future, next week will be the last CWK Live. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. I mentioned Pour-Over this week on Pour-Over. This is the second time we've done it. Corey, Tom, and I, we checked in on our 2024 habits. We had goals and habits and plans and for the year, and we talk about how we're doing. We're very honest about where we are, try to motivate each other, and hopefully it motivates you on your New Year's resolutions that you have as well. Robert says, thank you for a fun penultimate CWK Live day. And Robert, thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you joining and supporting me each week, and all of you. Mary says, CWK Live was my catalyst into really becoming more involved with this online community. So grateful for you, Dan, and this community. Oh, Mary, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's been a massive part of my life too. Even saying it, I kind of have these like, ugh. It's hard. It's hard, right? And this has become a part of my life for over 4 years, doing a live show. Done a lot of shows. Produced a lot of content, had a lot of great conversations, but more important than any of that, I got to know a lot of you and get to call you friend. And you are my friend. And I appreciate you being a healthy, happy, intelligent, humorous, and enlightened part of this Star Wars community that I am grateful to be a part of. So I will see you next week for the last live show. Thank you so much, everybody, this week. Again, tune in as James Burns and I break down the finale of The Acolyte coming out, gosh, in an hour and a half. How exciting. All right, enjoy it, everybody. I will see you next week. Thank you again so much for your support, your kindness, and your friendship. Remember, this is Dan Zehr, and this is the live podcast you're looking for. See you next week, everybody. Take care.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.